Hello and welcome to MIP TV. And with me is Bob Cook, the founder of the Manchester Institute for Psychotherapists. And Bob is a TA therapist. He practices in the world of transactional analysis.
Yeah.
And this particular set of videos is talking about TA theory. It's transactional analysis with Bob Cook. And we're going to start at the very beginning.
Yes.
The principal idea of TA, which is the pack model, parent, adult, and child, Bob. So tell us about that.
Okay, so this is interesting. Eric Berne, who created transactional analysis in 1961, and his first book was called Transactional Analysis Psychotherapy. And the first building block, if you're going to study TA theory, really is to think about how we become the way we are, which is where Eric Berne started. He was a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and that was his real interest. How did we become the way we are, all of us, psychologically? So he developed a theory of personality, how we develop our personality psychologically, which he called the pack model. And it was called that simply because it was the idea, and it's a really interesting idea, that every moment of the day, every second of the day actually, we come from different parts of ourselves psychologically. And he called these three different parts, colloquially, parent part of ourselves, adult part of ourselves, and child part of ourselves. So it's parent, adult, child, and that's why it's called the pack model, parent, adult, child.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Sometimes it's called the tripartite theory of personality, isn't it? In that our personality is split into three, parent, adult, and child. And in fact, those who are paying close attention may see a similarity with the work of Freud, because Freud talks about superego, ego, and id. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And, and interestingly enough, Eric Berne, the creator of transactional analysis, was very influenced by Freud. He moved away from Freud in the 50s, really, because he thought that Freud concentrated too much on the early unconscious, and he wanted to develop a model which also concentrated on here and now, so enable people to take ownership of changing the here and now at a quicker rate, if you like. But you're right, there's a direct, if you like, historical path back to Freud. I very much like this first model because everybody's had a parent, everybody's operates in the here and now, an adult, and everybody's had a childhood.
Absolutely.
And it's a very nice model. Eric Berne called this model his structural model. So why he called it that was because obviously structurally, looking at our past and looking at our internalized parent figures, if you like, will give us a clue, if we studied TA and became therapists, on how we become, how we are, and the problems people might have, for example, if they spend too much energy being their mother, and too much energy negatively. I mean, negative aspects of the parents. I don't mean too much the positive, but of course, as with the positive, because if you have a parent or a parent in your head which is very smothering, for example, then you'll not grow up.
No. And it might be one of the things you do is do things that aren't very helpful, like look out the window and see a neighbour sunbathing and think, oh, they need some suntan lotion, and run out and start rubbing suntan lotion into them, saying you're going to get burnt, and the next door neighbour's saying, don't do that.
Yeah. It's like they take the duty of care too far.
Yes. Yeah.
So they don't realise they are. They think they're coming from a here and now reality. That's the issue.
Yes.
So they think they actually are coming from a here and now reality and a belief system that says, we need to go and protect anybody who's in that situation, without even checking up whether the person wants you to run over and give them sunburn. But they believe they should do it all the time.
Yes.
In this sort of way that you were talking about. So they think they're coming from an adult reality, but in fact, they're coming from this sort of a lot of energy in their parent.
Yes, and I think we've all met people like that who may, you know, have the best intentions, but actually can drive you nuts, if that's the word I can use.
Yeah,
You know, have another cup of tea, have another hot dog, have another. You know, you say no, have another one of these. Like I bought that for you now, and if you don't eat it, it's going to go to that type of behaviour.
Yeah, that's called the negative nurturing parent behavior.
Yes.
We have inside ourselves a parent which we think, is actually the way to behave per se, regardless.
Yes.
Without checking up with people where they want a hug or they want another cup of tea, or we just go into this compulsive caretaking place because we think that it's the way to operate. And of course, if you think about this, if you grow up that way and you go into a relationship with another person, and you're always coming from this place that we're talking about here without checking up whether the person wants you to make a cup of tea 17 times a day or rush, you go, all these different things, then we'll have problems in relationships.
Yes. So that's the parents. I mean, there are two sides to it. There's the critical parent and the nurturing parents at a very basic level.
Yeah.
And those are the messages that we automatically take on. It's almost like monkey see, monkey do. We see our parents doing it, and therefore it becomes a default setting for us.
Correct. And we make a decision about it as well. So something like, well, it's really important that I follow these models, and if I don't, something bad will happen, or something like that.
Yes, yeah, and people get entrenched, don't they? They say things. Well, my father always did it like this, or my mother said. These are really good, strong clues, aren't they, about where people are operating from?
Absolutely right.
Yeah. So the adult part of the ego, tell us a little bit about that, Bob.
So that if you're coming from the adult, you'll be thinking, feeling, and behaving the age you are. So I'm 67. So I will be operating from my 67-year-old part of myself. So if I walk into this TV room, which I just have, and I'm speaking to you, and I step, say, on a tack that I left on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I stay in my 67-year-old self, I will feel the pain and I'll say, oh, that hurts. And then I'll see, oh, well, that's a tack there on the floor. I'll take it out of my foot and then I'll start rubbing it, put some oil on it, and then I'll talk to you because I'm a 67-year-old. I know how to deal with the pain in the feet and et cetera, et cetera. However, I could step into this room, I could put my foot onto the tack, and then I could start wailing, really wailing, and having a tantrum like a 3-year-old. So that might mean that I go back to operate just as I did in my child as a 3-year-old, and I completely, out of my awareness, don't think there's any resources, no resources around. I don't know there's any Nurofen I can go and get because what I go into is a tantrum. So that would be my child ego state.
Yes.
If I stay in the here and now, I stay as a 67-year-old with the resources of a 67-year-old, the awareness of a 67-year-old, or the maturity of a 67-year-old, which is very different from naivety and tantrums of a child.
Yes. So yes, it's very much about the adult ego state is about very much who you are in the here and now, and it's age related.
Correct.
And Byrne, if I'm not mistaken, said that a healthy personality accesses all these ego states.
Well, yeah, like it's an energy model, and you operate different parts of yourself, and there's always an organizing adult, and then there's the parent messages as well, and you go through these different parts of yourself, which he called ego states. However, if you haven't got access so easily to the 67-year-old part of yourself, you stay either always following these parental messages, or you stay stuck in some sort of child ego state. So the trick, or what's really important, is for health anyway, is that you have a robust adult that is able to take in resources of today to be able to function in a healthy way and take in the spontaneity of the child and the nurturing of the models of parents you have internalized.
Yes. And it's one of the things that I'm aware of. I'm a person centered. I come from the humanistic school. Is that if we do a compare and contrast with our models, Bob, if anybody's watching this, one of the big differences is that TA is a tripartite view of personality, parent, adult, and child, where the humanistic model is a organismic whole. We call it the organismic self. So if there's anybody doing a compare and contrast out there,
Yeah,
that definitely is one of the big differences between the two schools of therapy.
yeah. And transactional analysis, this model we're talking about, is a developmental model.
Yes.
In other words, at the past, what you do in your child ego state, that child part of yourself, the decisions you make as you grow up, influences you today.
Yes. So in the next episode of Transactional Analysis with Bob Cook, we're going to be looking at life scripts, our unconscious life plans that are written in childhood that we carry through into our adulthood and through the arc of our life. So yeah. So Bob Cook, that's a really interesting journey into the beginnings of TA. And what we'll do is to say next episode, we'll look at life scripts. So we'll see you there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.